We live together, Part 4. Several days have passed, and the teenagers find themselves alone together after dinner. Go ahead, Riley said, motioning to the sink. Christian jumped at the opportunity and set the stack of plates inside like it was the greatest privilege he'd ever received. It was the most she'd said to him in 3 days, and he didn't want it to end there, not while there was still so much he wanted to talk about. Neither of them had said a word about what had happened. A day went by. Then, another. By then, things had gotten so awkward the two barely even acknowledged each other. Christian cleared his throat. I was just kinda wondering if, shoo, she hissed. But before he even had a chance to be confused, Riley wiped her hand on the dish rag and then answered her phone. Her voice was 10 times more welcoming. Oh, hey. How are you? Miss me already? I hope you don't mind, you're on speaker, why? Is someone with you? A boy's voice asked. Riley craned her neck to her brother. No, it's just you and me. We're all alone. I'm just washing dishes, that's all. Christian shrugged and politely motioned to the door as if he should leave, but his sister shook her head. It was only after she pointed a soapy finger at all the dishes still on the table that he realized why. There was more on the stove too. It was covered with pots and pans, and their attempt at making smoothies on a hot summer night didn't help either. It looked like a golden retriever had made dinner. Christian didn't mind cleaning up though, he was just glad to still be in the same room with her, even if it was doing chores. But still, it made him feel a little uncomfortable with the way she was speaking with this boy. Christian felt like he was tagging along as a third wheel on a date as their conversation picked up. He started wondering though. He wondered if Riley may have had a boyfriend before she came to stay with them. That should have been it though, the thoughts should have ended right there. But Christian began to consider whether that cute, young girl in her short shorts may have left out some details about her past. Her plump bottom jumped when she stood up on her toes and laughed. Oh my God, she said playfully, you are a bad child. Christian stumbled and his clumsy hands tipped over a glass of water. It didn't break, but the glass rolled noisily over the wooden table and water began to drip over the edge. What was that? The boy asked. Riley frowned. Oh, nothing, I'm just clumsy that's all. Are you sure you're alone? She hesitated, watching with irritation as Christian wiped the table with a towel. Hello? The boy asked again. What? Oh, yeah, no, we're alone. Why? Is there something you wanted to ask me? Even though he had maintained a playful tone, his eagerness was slowly chipping away at the facade. Yeah, I want you to answer the question, he joked. So. What are you wearing? Oh my God, remind me to slap you the next time I see you. It's the white shorts, isn't it? The ones that look like they're shiny, like they're plastic, right? Her soapy hand suddenly stopped scrubbing. Hot water poured straight down into the drain as Riley peered back over her shoulder at her perky bottom. I mean yeah. But, how did you know that? Easy. You said you were working out, and no offense, but you only have like one good outfit. Let me guess, the black sports bra too. Christian's gaze immediately snapped to her backside. He didn't have to look at her to know that the boy was right. He'd noticed her outfit and her sweaty skin the minute she came back in from her jog. It had distracted him all during dinner. Even their mother had been uncharacteristically quiet, like she was afraid to even look at her daughter. The poor woman eventually made some excuse about the church needing help at 8:30 in the evening on a Tuesday and then disappeared. Christian almost wished he had gone with her. He'd been staring down his sister's top for the last hour. It wasn't completely open down the middle, instead, there were fancy notches that had been carved into the material that had probably cost her a fortune. Christian would have paid for it too, he loved being able to see her wet, light brown skin through the holes. Her breasts looked bigger too, like the soft flesh would spill through his fingers if he cupped them. His erection twitched in his shorts. Are you wearing any underwear? The boy asked. Ryan, she protested. You're wearing the ones I got you, huh? Riley took a deep breath. Her voice got quiet. Maybe, will you do something for me? He asked softly. No. I'm not doing that. I've told you 1,000 times. Ugh, oh come on, Ryan insisted, it's not like there's anyone around to see, right? Just a little, why do you care? It's not like you can see it anyway, right, please? You don't have to take your pants all the way off. Riley turned and caught her brother staring while he was pretending to stack dirty plates and cups. She wasn't fooled though, that tent in his pants just made him look silly, especially since he was trying so hard to look busy and uninterested in her underwear. Eventually, he had amassed such a collection of glassware that he had no choice but to carry it over to the sink. He stared down nervously at the floor when he got there. Riley stepped to the side. A few white suds clung to her flat, brown tummy. There were even some on her bra, and Christian could see small bubbles between her breasts. He gulped and made his way past her, setting the plates down in the sink. But he didn't rush back to the table when he was done. He wasn't sure why, but he just stood there. His sister may not have even noticed him. She just squirmed her way back in front of the sink and turned the hot water on. Soon, steam and bubbles were rising in front of her. Riley, the phone asked. Yeah, there was a pause. Ryan's voice was so soft and gentle that both Riley and Christian had to lean in to hear it. So, can you take them off for me? He asked. You're obsessed, she scoffed. Come on. Just like you used to, please. That was fun, right? Christian cocked his head. He did it so she could see it. He wanted her to see the confusion on his face. And it worked. Riley began stuttering, trying to explain herself. Well, it was just the one time. Don't make a big deal out of it, but you flashed me. And it was right there in the library at school. You seriously lifted your skirt and showed me your everything, you did? Christian whispered. Riley shook her head. No, I mean, not like that. It was an accident. And it's not like I wasn't wearing any panties, but they were all squished up in your ass because you were just like, I dunno, bending over that table. I think about it all the time. Ryan's voice got quiet. He whispered, and Riley, the two leaned in closer. Yeah, she said, I'm still hard. Christian pressed his erection her. A plate slipped from her hands and tumbled into the metal basin. Riley grunted, her big brown eyes blinked. That's why I got you that thong, because, well, what? Riley asked. Well, I just thought you could do it again sometime for me. And this way you'd look a lot more, like what? Like all the other slutty girls in our class. What? No. I'm not saying that you're you know. Ryan explained. Good. Because just. Oh my God, no. I'm a good girl, Ryan shouted through the phone, but then you just sat down right on top of it, right on my. And there were so many people around. God, it was so hot between your legs, I wanted to come so bad, Ryan. Oh my God. I can't believe you're telling me that. That's so. Riley was cut short. She grunted again, her brother's erection rubbed into her lower back, his balls mashed into her cheeks. She squirmed. Her voice softened. I didn't know. I just thought I was, I dunno, sitting on your knee. And then her thoughts were interrupted once more when Christian's hands clamped onto her hips. She turned her head toward him and snapped, What are you doing? A very confused Ryan answered, What? Are you talking to me? Is there someone else there? The two siblings ignored him. Christian leaned in close to his sister, so close his lips touched her ear. He whispered something that he wanted her to ask the boy. She immediately wriggled her shoulders free and glared at him as hard as she could, almost like if she concentrated hard enough she could burn a hole right through him. It was her death stare, but it did nothing to stop Christian, who just pressed himself harder into her. Come on, he pleaded, do it for me. Ask him, please. No, she whispered. Then, there was a gasp. A grunt. Riley's head bobbed a few times before settling. The angry scowl was back in a heartbeat, but this time it was less certain. tainted with confusion and doubt. "Riley, are you okay?" "What was that?" Ryan asked again. I was just imagining you here, you know, with me." She lied. You were. "What was I doing to you?" "Well, you're kinda behind me, and you're," a short pause, "rubbing your on me." There was a racket on the other end of the line like the phone had been dropped. "Oh my God, it's like you don't have any shame, you're just humping me through our clothes." Riley panted. She didn't bother to cover her mouth. She just kept glaring at her brother, almost like she was taunting him, daring him to go further. He immediately squeezed the soft flesh of her waist and embedded his shaft as far into her shorts as it would go. Riley flinched. She made a fist and stubbornly pushed herself back into her brother. She flexed her buttocks, trapping him behind her. They both narrowed their eyes at each other. Riley snarled her lip and Christian gritted his teeth. "Are you still there?" Ryan asked. Yeah. "No, yeah, I'm here. Well, can I ask you something?" "Yeah, what is it?" Riley hesitated. Her head lurched forward, and with each thrust of his hips, her death stare began to come apart. She still managed a scowl, but to Christian, it just looked cute. Riley cleared her throat. "So you're like hard right now?" she asked. Yeah. "And I'm touching it too." A pause, her wild brown eyes softened. They twinkled like a cartoon princess in a movie. She took a breath and asked, how big are you?" The phone went silent. The two siblings thought the line may have been disconnected. Christian gave a thoughtful look at the black screen. He imagined the boy on the other end was a cute blonde boy the same age as he was. At least, that's what he hoped. Riley leaned her soapy chest toward the phone and asked again, but Christian hardly heard her. Riley barely even heard herself. Christian tucked his fingertips inside her pants and traced them over the top of her panties. He pulled the material up her back. I'm playing with my panties, you know, the ones you bought me," she whispered. "They're seriously so small and so tight you can barely even see them." No response. Riley suddenly jumped. She started to squirm as Christian's fingers slipped inside. He didn't go far, but Riley still knew exactly what he was going to do. She looked back over her shoulder, snarling and flashing her perfect white teeth. "Are you seriously going to undress me?" she asked. "Really? You want to take off my pants?" There was stirring on the other end, a rustling sound. Christian's heart began to race. He knew what that sound was. A moment later, he tugged, and Riley's shorts slipped past her bottom. Christian was immediately overwhelmed by all the bare, light brown skin of her buttocks. He felt lightheaded and disoriented. But it was his sister who nearly collapsed. Her knees buckled and she arched her back. She gasped right into the phone, leaving spit and hot moist droplets of her breath all over the screen. I'm almost now. Oh my God, I can't believe you did it. You actually pulled my pants down to my knees." The fleshy sounds coming through the speaker grew louder. Her lips kissed the plastic when she spoke. "Come on, I bet you have a big. Why won't you tell me how big it is? Don't you want me to? You know, it's almost 5 inches. Ryan blurted out. The siblings grunted at the same time. Christian's erection spilled out the top of his shorts and slipped between her thighs. He pressed his shaft all the way through until it came out the other side. Another grunt. "Hello?" the concerned boy asked. Riley stumbled. She shot an incredulous look at her brother before peering down between her legs. Her hand followed a moment later and seized the tip. She made a fist around it and nearly lost her footing. "Riley?" Ryan asked. "Are you okay?" It's just." She paused and pumped with a shaky hand. "I've never touched one before and you're so big." There was a short pause before Ryan's weak voice answered. I am." Her jaw came apart as she nodded to her brother. "I seriously don't think it would fit inside me." she said as she squeezed her fist around the flesh sticking through her legs. All three of them moaned together until Ryan's unsteady voice rose above the rest. But you're like, wet, right? He asked uncertainly. Christian nearly lifted her off the ground with his shaft. It was damp and moist between her legs to the point he couldn't feel her panties anymore. He wasn't even sure if they were still there. Riley's hand pumped again. Even her fingers felt sticky. Riley. Are you wet? He asked impatiently, her lip twitched. With her eyes on her brother, she whispered, I think so. Maybe. Ryan asked, I think so, but I can't help it. You're so, it's just so. Are you touching yourself? No, maybe. She gulped, I'm bending over for you, just how you like. The screen suddenly came to life. Ryan was on his back in the middle of his bed, his smooth, white thighs were spread wide. It appeared that he was holding his phone with a selfie stick as he stroked his penis. He brought the camera in close between his legs and asked. Do you like it? Riley nodded stupidly to the phone until she remembered he couldn't see her. It's so pretty, she whispered. His hand stroked up the slender shaft and stopped around the head. Riley, he asked, yeah, do you, think you would want to at some time? She began, but her thought was cut short. She yelped and set a hand over her mouth. The head of Christian's had slipped under her thong. Well, would you do it? Would you mind? Ryan asked again. She bit her hand. Do you think I could in your mouth? Riley yelped. The tip had breached her lips and was nestled inside of her. Ryan gritted his teeth and pumped. I've thought about this for so long. He confessed. I always picture you on your knees with my in your mouth, and your big are right there. I want to on them so bad, I want to all over you, even your pretty face. You look so hot, fuck. She nodded to the phone as if she understood what he was saying but couldn't find her wits to reply. All she could do was exhale her hot breath all over the phone. It was enough for Ryan, who raised his hips, closed his eyes, and whispered, oh my God, you're such a, Riley. You're such a. Christian had barely moved. He was afraid he was going to hurt her, so he held her firmly by the waist and let her come to him. Slowly, carefully, she pressed backward until her moist swallowed him. Ryan raised his voice and stroked, Riley. Are you there? Can I on your face? Her forehead banged into the faucet. She blurted out, I don't care where you do it, just me, bend me over and me. Jesus, Ryan shrieked. A rope of arched up from his erection and left a glimmering trail of liquid across his belly. He pumped again and again until his chest was sparkling. The two siblings hardly even noticed. Riley couldn't even tell which direction Ryan's voice was coming from, and she fought hard with her eyes to keep them from drowning out the light. Her head began to bob. Slowly. Steadily. Every time her brother pulled back, he'd slam it right back into her. His hips began to sting her fleshy round cheeks. She made a fist and pounded the counter. I can't believe you're me, she shouted. I'm your sister. Then, her knees buckled and she slumped forward into the sink. Christian just went faster, deeper. Riley screamed into the soapy water, sister. Ryan asked. Hey, Riley. Who's there with you? Her screams got louder, but still not loud enough to drown out the stinging sound of flesh on flesh. The cute blonde boy propped himself up on his shoulders, cum dripping down his chest. He looked into the camera. Riley. You're actually having sex, aren't you? Turn on your camera. The poor Latina girl's feet came off the floor and her head dipped into the hot, soapy water. She pulled herself out immediately, vigorously shaking her head, but the small bubbles wouldn't budge. They clung stubbornly to her cute, little nose. She spat the dirty liquid into the sink. Riley. Please. Turn on your camera, let me see him you. Ryan begged. A moment later, his eyes went wide. The cute blonde teenager froze. Even the cum rolling down onto his sheet seemed to pause and stare curiously into the screen. Oh my God. Christian. What are you doing? She screamed. I can't help it. I'm going to come, her brother said. What? Oh my God. It's going to make a mess, and you're filming this? Are you crazy? Christian grunted. I'm. He had the phone in one hand, and his in the other. He was above her, shooting long lines up her back. And all she could do was peer back over her shoulder with her soapy face and frazzled hair. At least she was able to think clearly now that the big distraction inside of her was gone. Riley blew her bangs from her brow and pouted into the camera. Wait, who is that? Did you say it was Christian? Is that his? Riley nodded. Ryan brought his face in close to his phone. He took a few moments and very carefully admired every inch of his girlfriend's body, pinching at the screen and zooming in to see all of her sticky, brown skin. Christian though was hoping the boy was also interested in the big piece of flesh lying flat across her back. He made sure it was right there in the center of the frame as the last bits of his orgasm seeped out and joined the rest. Eventually, Ryan shook his head and cleared his throat. Do you guys, do this all the time? He asked. Riley shook her head. A curly, black lock fell into place over one eye. He nodded. His voice got quieter. And Riley, huh? She asked, her voice distant and as foggy as her eyes. Do you think it would be okay if I was there with you? She blew the hair from her face but didn't say anything. Ryan went on, so it would be the three of us? Me and Christian, we'd both be, fucking me, she said bluntly. Ryan swallowed. Yeah. That, and sucking us too, she frowned. I guess, I dunno. I've never done that before. His face lit up. He almost jumped up from his mattress. Hey. Riley. Do you think that maybe it would be okay if you did it with Christian? What? Wait, you want to watch me, my brothers? I mean, yeah, I guess. Would you? When she only stared incredulously over her shoulder without budging, he continued. It's like my biggest fantasy, remember? You're on your knees with your shorts down, around your thighs and you're only in your underwear. My is all the way down your throat and you're just sitting there, letting me do it, and, okay. Jesus. Riley snapped. But seriously. You're such a perv. This is all you think about, huh, don't you? No. Jesus, I don't think about all day, she insisted. But even as she spoke, she lifted herself from the counter and spun around to face her brother. The camera was right there in her face. She squinted at the bright light. Ugh. I can't believe I'm doing this, she groaned. Then, a second later, she was sliding down his body. Christian took a step back to make room. His shaky hands did their best to hold the phone steady as he filmed his 16-year-old sister getting into position. His erection rubbed against her cheek. It had stayed like that even after the impressive orgasm from just moments earlier. Christian could still see hot fresh rolling down her back onto the tile floor. Riley looked up at her brother with her big, saucer eyes. So, what do I do? She asked, just I dunno, open your mouth. Ryan answered. She set her nose under the tip and stared cross-eyed at it. She asked, and then what? Then you lean forward and just close your mouth around it. That's when you start moving your head up and down, Ryan said. She huffed and blew hot air out her nostrils. Christian's shaft twitched and a little, white jewel leaked out and rolled down the bridge of her nose. Riley's eyes widened as she tracked its descent until finally it collided with her lips. She pressed them tightly together and huffed through her nose. Come on, Ryan whined, open up. She pulled her lips in even tighter and shook her head. Please put it inside. Oh my God, Riley. Suck his, please, she groaned through her closed mouth. Then suddenly, her phone started vibrating. Christian handed it to her. Their mom was on the other line. Ugh. We have to go, Ryan, Riley said. Wait, no, Riley, he protested. But it was too late. He was gone. Riley took a breath before answering. Mom, she asked calmly, the tip of Christian's pressed into her lips. She ignored it and furrowed her brow in concentration. There was noise coming through the phone, but it wasn't their mother. Riley tried again, louder. Hello? Mom, are you there? Static. Hissing. Even their mother's phone was old and mean, Riley thought. Eventually, an angry woman's voice spoke up. Why are you so loud? She complained. I'm just trying to make sure you can hear me. Riley shouted. Christian's just barely penetrated her mouth. She scowled up at him but didn't retreat or pull away. She even managed to still sound like herself. Mom. Hello. You called me, remember, calm. Please. I know that. I'm calling you because you need to be quiet, she laughed and took the entire head in her mouth. Mom, you called to tell me that I answer the phone too loud, she asked, but the irritation she intended to embed in her voice got stuck on the flesh slipping down her throat. Her words just came out muted and muffled. Is everything okay? The woman asked. Why wouldn't it be? Riley mumbled, the neighbors said you were fighting. Are you okay? What did Christian do? What? Oh. No. No. We're not fighting, she laughed. It snaked further into her mouth along her tongue. This isn't funny. They said they heard you shouting, don't lie to me. Please, you need to stop fighting so the neighbors don't get worried. The last thing I need are Lutherans complaining to Monsignor. I can't have that. I just can't. Do you understand? What? That doesn't even make sense, and... Riley gagged. She pushed the out of her mouth with her tongue and spat. Riley. What was that? Are you okay? Are you choking? No. What? I'm fine, she insisted. A moment later, it was back inside her mouth. She pressed the phone tight into her face and slurped. Mom. Can you hear me? You shouldn't talk with your mouth full, the angry lady said. Riley was about to say something but instead, she narrowed her eyes and plunged forward. She immediately gagged. Their mother fumed. Lord, have mercy. I'll be home soon, and please change your clothes, the line is turned off.